variations on a theme in SQL or SQL. And the theme today is inner join. Let's have a look at 3 different LeetCode problems, all pertaining to that theme and how we can use the theme in order to solve that problem in different variations. Okay, first up is 182 duplicate emails flagged as easy with an SQL scheme. Write a SQL query to find all duplicate emails in a table named person. The table might look like this: ID and email, 123, a@b.com, c@d.com, and again a@b.com. And then the query should return the following for the above table: email a@b.com. Why? Because it appears twice in that table. And side note, all emails are in lowercase. Next up, employees earning more than their managers. Easy. SQL scheme. The employee table holds all employees, including their managers. Every employee has an ID, and there is also a column for the manager ID. So let's look at that. We got ID 1234, name Joe, Henry, Sam, Max, with salaries 70, 80, 60, 90. Manager ID 34 and null, null, and null, apparently then meaning that it's a non-manager regular staff. Given the employee table, while a SQL query that finds out employees who earn more than their managers. For the above table, Joe is the only employee who earns more than their manager. Let's check at that. Okay, so let's walk back on this one. If you have a manager ID, then that means that person with the ID is your manager. So Sam is Joe's manager and Max is Henry's manager. So we get like a 1-to-1 situation in this table. So given the employee table, write a SQL query that finds out employees who earn more than their managers. For the above table, Joe is the only employee who earns more than his manager. Look at Joe, he has 70 and his manager Sam has only 60. So we return Joe. And then the last one is rising temperature. Flagged as easy. Given a weather table, write a SQL query to find all dates IDs with higher temperature compared to its previous yesterday's date. So we're sensing a theme coming up here already, something like higher and comparison with itself. We got 4 ideas, 1, 2, 3, 4. We got record dates, all in January 2015, 1st through 4th. And then the temperature goes from 10 to 30. And for example, return the following ideas for the above weather table: ID 2 and 4. Why? Because in these 2 dates, the temperature was higher than the previous date. 25 is higher than 10, and 30 is higher than 20. So believe it or not, all these problems can be tackled using an inner join, which is explained in some detail here at w3schools.com. The SQL inner join keyword selects records that have matching values in both tables. With the syntax, select column from table 1, and then you inner join it with table 2. And inner join basically in set theory is like the intersection set between those 2 tables. And then you want to join it on a certain equivalence, and that equivalence would be table 1, and then your column name equals table 2 column name. And they're so kind to also like provide some demos here on two different tables, right? And then we check the common theme between them is the customer ID, apparently. So we join orders, inner join with customers on orders customer ID equals customers, customer ID. And of course, this can also be extended on more than 2 tables. And here we got an example on 3 tables. Plus, they also kind also to offer you like some own examples to work through. So it's a great read. Work it through, and then once you're done, you can have a look at how the theme of inner join is used to tackle the problem of those three problems. How can that be tackled using inner join? First one was find duplicate emails. So what we're doing here is basically select distinct on P1, and then we both do the same table, but we inner join it with itself to find if there's a duplicate going on. So person P1 inner join person P2 on the ID is different than a first ID and second ID, and P1 email is P2 equals emails. This way we find out the duplicate email even though something different is going on with the ID. Right? We join the table with itself under the premise that we have the email being exactly the same and with the ID being different from each other. That's all to it, to basically find out all remaining entries in the table that have duplicate emails. That's what's being spewed out immediately from that. Next up, employees earning more than their managers. And again, we join the same table, but join it as two different variables, E1 and E2. And now we check if the manager ID from the first table is the ID, like the employee ID of the second table, meaning like this line basically tells me the person in the second table is the manager of the person in the first table. And then our condition on it is person, like table 1's person salary is higher than table 2's person salary. And remember, table 1 is the person who is being managed because it has a manager ID. We clarified this earlier. Equals second table's person, which is the manager. So if we have a person that has a manager and that person's salary is higher than that manager's salary, all those remaining entries are being spewed out from our inner join. And that's basically taking the verbal text of, hey, find a person, an employee in the table whose manager earns less than the employee. This is basically being coded out here in these two lines with the trick to join the table with itself. And finally, we have a look at rising temperatures. Find a date whose prior date had a lower temperature, right? So which date is higher than the first one. Bearing spelling mistakes, we can do something like this. We join the table with itself again, an inner join of itself. And then first condition is that the date is just 1 day apart. Bearing in mind that here, for this to work, we would have to have a date recording every single day, right? So because we do here +1, right? Like in terms of if you would have like holes or like missing entries in your table between like two dates, this will not necessarily work. Like what they are trying to achieve is like find the neighbor in the table, but they encode it by saying, okay, my neighbor definitely has to be like date +1, right? So on the condition that 1 day is other date's date +1, and that the first date temperature is higher than the second date temperature. So if my first date is just the next day of second date, and the first date temperature is just higher than the second date temperature. In that case, the inner join will just spew out exactly those remaining entries in the table who satisfy exactly this condition, and that was verbalized, saying, hey, give me the dates where they are higher than the previously recorded date, and this is basically exactly how you would phrase it in a SQL query. And that's all to it for using inner join. We have looked at those 3 examples and then went for a nice explanation on W3, and then applied that theme of inner join as a variation for 3 different problems.